It's not a certain something, it's each of you sitting right now, sitting down and watching what the next thought is. At the moment when there is a current thought, what is the next one? Can you know the thought that hasn't yet appeared? An honest answer is needed for oneself. Most likely you'll see that you don't know. But don't listen to me, you have to see it yourself, and you will keep suffering until you see it yourself. And only when you can see it yourself, that you do not know what your next thought is. There will be no more suffering in your life, but only when you really see it, and realize that a thought just arises as a given, and as soon as it arises, your I immediately arises, and claims this thought is mine. And you see this process, but even the I arises spontaneously as a given without knowing, and it goes, this thought is mine, and my thought is spontaneous, and then the next thing, no way, and din, and here it all is one after another, and you see this whole process, whatever form the I thought is taking. It just can't deceive you. You see that it all arises spontaneously, and you didn't know this, didn't know. And thus you see that you don't choose. The next thought. How does action happen? How does perception happen? It forms a state, a thought or decision, and action. Then you take this. And that's how matter appears. And no one chooses what to perceive. It just can't be chosen, and it happens one after another with such speed that it isn't even noticed, but it all appears spontaneously. You do not know where you will turn your head. You see all your blinking, scratching, moving, it's all happening with you. You're walking, everything's happening around you. It is all happening right now, and no one can stop this. Your mind's also just happening, it simply exists. Your mind's just such abundance. Like there are bananas, there are oranges, mangoes, and so on. It's just, abundance of varieties. Like the mind, there is a hurricane, there is clear weather, there is snow, there is, I don't know. And there can be green grass and burnt grass, and there are different things. But it's all the same, it's all one. And what does the mind do? The mind wants you to be like this, like that. If there's a relationship, it should be like this. Which means it wraps everything into something, some form. But what exists cannot be wrapped into any form. It's the infinite potential. It just manifests the way it manifests and happens the way it happens. Without a cause. And as soon as you see that you can never know your next thought, your next word, your next action, you will never blame someone else or yourself anymore. Never again. The way you acted before, you could not have acted differently. You did not choose that. You start to experience compassion. The person who sincerely sees this then simply feels compassion for other people. When they finally see how other people suffer from thinking that they acted wrongly, or thinking what happens next, and so on. And it is actually torment for them. And they don't even really know themselves. Didn't pay attention to themselves. Their attention is consumed by some thoughts. And they do not know themselves beyond these thoughts. This is what they suffer from the feeling that they acted somehow wrongly. Accordingly, because they feel that they act somehow wrongly, then others can act wrongly too. They blame themselves and others. At the same time, they also worry about how to act in the future. Should I go here or there? They think that all of this depends on them. And they don't see this simple essence, a simple truth that is right here and now in front of them. They see because their attention is engaged. But their attention is directed somewhere else. With everything that I'm telling you right now, I'm just kind of directing your attention. So you could finally take a look. That is, it's just that before this your attention was being directed just somewhere else. But here and now I'm directing it to myself. The only truth that truly matters can be found right here and right now within you. And not somewhere once, from someone, and then you will be able to see. In what delusion you have been living your whole life, thinking that something depends on you, thinking that you can really do what's right or what's wrong. Moreover, when you see the nature of it all, you realize the nature. Then you realize that right and wrong are the same thing, and there are no differences between them, and there is no such thing as right and wrong. There is just the moment itself that happens as it happens without reason, and no one can choose it, and you can see this from your direct experience. But for this, you need to take your attention out of the mind and start looking at how everything happens and how thoughts arise. For now, your attention is in thoughts. Thoughts are, here you are emerging, and as you emerge, if from the very moment you were born someone kept telling you that, look, you only have this moment and here it keeps changing, so don't get attached to anything, then it would have been different for you. Someone coming into your life is good and someone leaving is good. It's better for you to always be yourself. You shouldn't lose yourself. And that's it, and that would have been your eternal, unchanging joy. But when a person comes to you and behaves in a certain way, and it's the way that you think they should not behave, they just can't behave any other way. They only behave the way they like to behave. All your suffering is not from how a person manifests next to you, but from how you perceive that person's behavior. You only truly suffer from yourself, and you actually hate yourselves. You actually love yourselves. You actually thank yourselves. Let me explain why. Imagine that it's raining. A downpour. You've all seen a downpour. And there's 10 people, or how many? 465 people, perceiving the downpour. And each of you will perceive this same downpour based on your own experience. As you grew up, you saw, heard, and sensed something, and this accumulation of information with which you identify. And you believe that you have a name. And then this bunch of information, your experience, and the totality of it all is your personality, with which you identify and believe that it's what you really are. And when you rely on this personality, you only perceive the illusion. When I say illusion, I'm talking about what's happening. I call it an illusion because it changes. It appears and disappears. No matter what it is, it all just comes and goes, except for what is unchanging. And so you perceive a downpour. First, it's not a downpour, it's just something. We call it rain, downpour. Someone calls it rain. Like I said, there are different names. But first, you need to see that it does not carry this name. The name itself is just an indicator of what is happening, something unknown. The first thing that will bring liberation and peace is the recognition that it's not rain. It is something unknown happening, a miracle. It is not even a miracle, but something unknown, so don't try to fit it into any form. Admit this to yourself. To know it within yourself. In communication, you can say rain or whatever you want to call it, but within yourself, you just know that it's not really this name. And so further, everyone perceives it based on experience, but relying on this personality, and this actually shapes the state. The state. It means that one person looks at the rain and says, oh, what terrible weather, I have a meeting now. So I'm getting late because of this awful weather and so on. And so they have this perception. And it forms such an irritated state within them. The second person is also running in the rain saying, my stuff is getting wet, what kind of weather is this? They're being torn apart too. The third person thanks the rain. They say, it's finally raining, I've got a garden. So finally my flowers will grow, my garden. I'll have food to eat. The fourth one is also grateful. They deeply understand that it is precisely because it's raining that they're even alive. And so they see and perceive that everything that is happening in their life is only happening just because there is rain. Such an attitude towards the rain, it even brings it into some sublime, elevated state, so to speak. Somewhere there's an entire village or an entire town rejoicing, because they only have rain once a year. And somewhere they hate it because it rains every day there. Something is happening. It's not even rain. And each of these people will hate and suffer because of their perception. No, it's not related to what's going on in space. What happens in space just happens, that's it. It happens. I can't influence it. So what am I suffering from? Not from what happens in space. I'm suffering from myself and from my ignorance. That's why I'm suffering from the fact that I decided that what happens in space should be happening differently. People suffer from the fact that they break on their expectations. They just decided. All these people who perceive the rain. It's one thing happening, but each of them experiences their own. And all of them hate themselves, rejoice in themselves, love themselves, or fall in love with themselves, experience bliss from themselves, from their perception and all that. It's not related to what happens. It's related to their own perception of what actually happens. And this is what needs to be noticed. And when something happens, you've got a moment and that's it. You've got a moment, and in that moment happens what happens. You are now where you are. But in one of those moments you met a person, so to speak. You always meet new people. But you've met a person, you've paid some attention to each other, and turned it into some form, a concept of relationship that's supposed to last forever or something like that, and so on. That is, there's a bunch of rules, lots of things. But it's a deal. This is not love, it's a deal. Love, unconditional love, is accepting everything the way it actually is, in all its manifestations. The essence of love is that you just witness it without expectations. So it comes, whatever it may be. You observe it here right in front of you. It goes. It's leaving. Somehow it changes, communicates with this. It communicates with this, communicates with that, and with that. Happens what happens, just the way it happens. And this thing itself and you see the essence of what simply cannot be any other way. They don't choose how to treat certain people. It just happens the way it happens. And you simply don't lose yourself. If you're not losing yourself, there will be no suffering. Where does suffering come from? From the fact that your attention is totally on him or her, on how they are, how they behave with whom, what they do, and so on. Of course you will suffer. Leave everyone alone, be here now as yourself, everything will be cool. But if you sit all day thinking about who, how, where, with whom, you've clearly lost yourself. You just cannot influence who does what and where. Be here and now with yourself. It will be cool. You've been left with 3 kids? Then it was meant to be. If you see that you can't predict your next thought, don't worry. Some force is currently taking care of 8 billion children on the planet. And people, they're all somehow moving, walking, talking, get things done somehow. Before them there was 100 billion. Look, entire cities are growing, so many plants. The whole universe is happening right now. Billions of stars in space somehow appeared out of nowhere. The entire human race somehow appeared. Something took care of you for you all to be here. And you worry about how things will be, how you've been left with the kids, how they will grow up. It'll be just as simple as their birth. And you'll see them growing up. Inevitably, everyone will be learning what they must learn. And you can easily notice it right now just as soon as you see that you don't know the next thought. All that is needed is honesty, just total honesty. If you see that the next thought is unknown, and see it again, that's all. Then you see that no one ever chooses how to behave, what to say to whom, where with whom to be. It happens for some reason. They don't have a choice. Manifesting with this. This is it, and you don't lose yourself. Someone appears, let it be, and that's it, that is. These particular names are no longer there. The fact of communicating with this person, that's a relationship. Communicating with that person, that's work. With that person, that's your parent. Those are your children. So many names, so many forms, relationships, and so on. The body in space actually communicates with the body. The body is always interacting with itself in all its manifestations. If you expect that a person will somehow manifest, if you try to impose some expectations on them, you'll inevitably suffer. You'll inevitably break from them. So maybe it's what you need to understand. In order for you to learn how to not expect,